Now that I'm thinking about it, almost everything in my life I don't like to do, but I have to do it anyway. It's kind of hard to make a list of the things that I truly like to do. Yeah. I always give this example. No one woke up saying, I want to be a Walmart clerk. All my life I've dreamt of being a trash collector. I want to be an admin in a back office in Broward County. I want to sit at home Monday to Friday without any job. I want to marry a bald, paunchy guy. There are so many things in your life that you just have to do whether you like it or not. And what decides, what is it in you that decides I like this and I don't like this? So it's all connected with the pleasure-pain principle, right? We have a tendency to go towards things that give us pleasure and to go away from things that give us pain. Now this has been hardwired in us from the time we were hunters and gatherers, because that's how we survived. You ran away from the dinosaurs, and you ran away from the spears, and you ran away from the big snakes, and you ran away from all the things that could injure you. And you ran towards food and the berries. In fact, in those days, when you were a hunter and gatherer, it was not always easy to find sweet things in nature, right? But your body requires, in addition to protein, in addition to carbohydrates, it requires sugar. So what would happen is that when they came to a bush of berries or something sweet, they would stuff. They would eat as much as they could. And that has kind of been hardwired into our DNA. So that when we look at sugar, we eat more than we should, than we need. So all of our desires, all of our patterns have a history. Have a history. Things that are good for you and things that are not good for you. Right? When you have to do something that is paradharma, that is not according to your nature, work from 9 to 5 in some office, stay married to somebody, take care of someone who's sick, deal with managing a budget of $1,000 a month till you get a better job. There are so many periods in our life that we go through, that we have to stick with a car that doesn't work, stick with an air conditioning that malfunctions, stick with furniture that we hate, that has every bit of food from the last 20 years on it. We have things, but we have no ability to change it. What happens then is that it's wiser to pick that as something you like. It's like saying, I love kale. Right? You train yourself to like the things that are good for you. Especially with our taste buds, we're extremely picky. We're extremely picky. We want things that are sweet. We won't eat things that are too spicy. It has to have the right amount of salt. But then you get high blood pressure and you have to halve the salt. I remember when I was pregnant with my first child, I had put on 65 pounds. How much? 65. By month 6. And my doctor told me, first of all, two things. You're going to develop high blood pressure, your legs are already swelling. And secondly, I won't even find your spine to give you an injection. It's so covered in fat. So he put me on a diet, and not only that, on a salt-free diet. Oh Lord, that was the most trying time of my life. Have you ever tasted food without salt? It's the worst. It's the worst. And I cried for the first week, and the second week, and the third week. And do you know, but that by the time they introduced salt into my diet towards the end of I didn't like it. I had gotten used to it. I knew I had to eat. I knew it was good for me. So it's a question of adjusting your own mind to liking the things that are good for you. And just developing an aversion for things that are not. Like I told you, sweet, this is something that's hardwired into us. Oh, the taste of chocolate. Nobody can resist a baklava and a chocolate and a sweet. But if you tell yourself, I cannot, it's poison. It's just poison for me. You won't pick it up. You won't do the things that hurt you. So it's all a question of mental adjustment. What gives us pain and what gives us pleasure. And somehow what I am trying to teach in Hamsa meditation is to stay away from these extremes. Too much pain and too much pleasure. In the center is this stillness or happiness, which doesn't give too much pleasure, but it doesn't give too much pain either. It just is. It just is. And if we train ourselves to remain present, we don't get swayed by our mind, which is constantly telling you things to pull you in its direction. He doesn't like you, but he's the boss. He's saying mean things about me. He doesn't like me. He's treating me, worse than a slave. I don't think I can put up with this. No amount of money is enough. But you do need that job. You do need that job. You do need to grow. You do need to accept certain things in your life for a time, for a while. I always say, you're in a boat, and if there's a little bit of water, it's fine. But if the boat is sinking, it's time for another boat, right? I never say that you should go through life, tortured all the time. Although when I think about my grandmothers and people, 90% of the villages in India, they are in marriages they don't want. They're stuck to a kitchen they don't like, bringing up children, having, staying at home, being beaten. Who wants to be in that situation? Who wants? 90% of women around the world are in lives they did not choose, are in lives that they hate, are in lives that they can do nothing about. We are a privileged 10% that have a choice. You go into Africa, you go into the villages of Africa, you go into the villages of Eastern Europe. Why? Go into the country right here in the United States of America. And you will see women in loveless marriages because they'd rather be married than be single. And they'd rather put up with the beating than have to manage on their own. We are all of us, some portion of our life we don't want. But if it's something small, like I don't like driving but I have to drive, I don't like cooking but I have to cook, these are really, really small things. If you look at the bigger picture, all of us women have to stand behind and empower that other 90% that's in a life that they cannot have no control over. Absolutely no control over. They don't know what to do. There's no escape. They cannot go back to parents. They're saddled with 3 and 4 children. They don't have the power to earn their own money. It has to become our mission, really. And I've transgressed because it's not about our small little lives. It's about when once we realize that we are putting up with things we don't like and we have the ability to say, I'm going to change it. I'm not going to do it. What are we doing to help those that just stuck in lives they just can't? The only escape is death. The only escape is death. I have a person who asked me to speak to her mother-in-law. And she told me that her mother-in-law had had the most difficult life with a very difficult husband who did all kinds of things. She had to live for 10, 15 years without him, manage the house. And then all of a sudden, now everything is settled down, husband has become nicer, children are married, taking care of the business. She's checked out of life. She sits in her room and refuses to come out. She's in her mid-60s. And I can see, she won't tell anyone what it is. She's sick and tired. For years, when you keep doing things you don't like, something stops sparking in your brain. That serotonin, that feeling that, oh, today's a great day, let me do something, let me go for a movie, let me put on some lipstick, let me enjoy myself. That stops kicking in. And no drugs work either, because she should have taken those drugs 40 years ago. Years and years and years undiagnosed, untreated, uncared for. Now she doesn't care. She's just waiting for the day she goes. And you'd imagine in your mid-60s, you've got plenty to live for. There's plenty you can do. We're all, doing something different. She's doing pottery. I'm making my potions. We're all doing something new and different every day. That stops kicking in. So really, we go about our jobs. We go about our lives. We complain about all the things that we don't like. About lizards that walk in. Yeah, we don't like lizards, we don't like cockroaches in our homes. Uninvited, exactly. We complain about people, we complain about, classes we have to take or work that we have to go. These are such small things. We should instead spend our energy doing something to help those who can't do for themselves, have no ability to get out. I always say, whenever I hear people talking about outsourcing, I remember in the last election it was a big thing. Oh, it's all going to China, it's all going to India, it's all going to Thailand and all of these places. They're taking on American jobs. But let me tell you that outsourcing, those call centers, have pulled the women out of the kitchen and into the workplace. It's given them money which they never had. Most of the call centers, 90% of them, are filled with women. And I think that that's the best thing America could have done for India. Outsourcing. Because in India it is such a huge problem, because it's not just your husband. It's your mother-in-law and your sister-in-law and your brother-in-law. It's the whole setup. It's oppressive. You cannot do anything. And now I see a big difference in the way women are becoming entrepreneurs. They're getting out, they're dressing up, they're eating out. These were things that never happened 25 years ago when I lived in India. Nobody went out to eat. few restaurants. Everybody ate at home. Nobody went out for, movies were very special occasions. Entertainment for women, very special occasions. They never bought for themselves. Now I see everyone is doing something different. And it shows that there is, an upliftment of society. So don't lament about your small situation. When you think of yourself and what you're going through and how you have to put up with things, think how small it is. That it's that bee in that flower that I keep talking about when you're looking at it with a camera. Oh, it seems to be such a huge thing. But when you pull the camera out and you're looking at the whole panorama, you can't see the bee. You can't see the bee. It's nothing. Instead, think of pulling out the weeds in the garden. That's what you see. That stands out. All the things that plague our society, that plague women. And if women don't help themselves, we can't expect men to stand up for us. We have to stand up for ourselves. And you talk about things that you don't like. Do you know that in most societies, these customs and these traditions are enforced by the women? It's not really the men that do it, it's the women who believe in it. And it goes generation after generation after generation. It's a cycle that is very difficult to break out of. So yeah, it's fine if you have to go through things that you don't like. After all, who decides what you like? You like something now, 6 months later you like something else. And a year later you forgot what you liked in the first place. Changes, you're so fickle. You're so fickle. It's like the color of your hair. One year you wanted blonde, next year you wanted red, then you wanted brown. You like it. What do you like? That's such a fickle term. And that's so subjective. And that's so temporary. It lasts for it just depends on your situation. When you have everything, that's when you complain about the small things you don't like. So get out of that. Get out of that and think about what can I do for others. And then all the stuff that you don't like, you won't even remember. Om Namaः Shivaya.